This morning was a busy morning for us here on the mountain. We had John Olney, David Gates, and our entire picking crew working vigorously at sunrise this morning to get off some of our beautiful Chardonnay. And now here we are. We've loaded the press, we've fired up the press, and I take it from here. What I like to see is as the whole clusters go into the press, we lightly squeeze, and I like to see this beautiful flow of juice. One thing that's unique about how we make the wine here, as well as how we press the wine, not only is it whole cluster, but we purposely let the oxygen interact with the wine, which is a unique style of winemaking, especially here in California. Most modern wine production facilities for white wines think that oxygen is actually an evil, whereas we actually relish in it. Most places will avoid oxygen at all costs by either adding sulfur to the wine immediately, or CO2 or some sort of an inert gas to keep the oxygen away. When I'm pulling the juice sample from the pan, it's already brown. That would scare most people, but for us, we actually embrace that because the theory there is to let the wine brown purposely immediately so that later it won't happen accidentally. So it's almost like an insurance policy. We'd rather have that happen now, and then what happens is during the fermentation that blows off and we end up with what we know as our beautiful golden hued Chardonnay. So that's one thing that was happening today that you saw. The other thing is that I'll tend to take an initial Brix reading at the press pan. I use my refractometer here and let the juice drip on that. What this is actually a prism, and the light refracts off of the prism, and as I look through it, there's a meter in here that tells me the exact percentage of sugar that's in that juice. And what that tells me is it gives me an idea of what my final alcohol will be on the wine. That's very important to know right from the beginning. So good news this morning, we were at 23 Brix, according to the refractometer here, which by conversion to alcohol will give me about 13.5%, which is absolutely perfect. That's perfect numbers. I could taste the acidity was absolutely gorgeous. So we have a very nicely picked batch of fruit to work with here today. So now what will happen is as it drains from the pan, it will go to a tank and we'll settle it overnight. Again, keeping it open, letting the air interact with it, letting it brown, and in fact the next morning we'll actually pump that over and introduce even more oxygen to it. And from there we go straight to barrels. The wine actually ferments in the barrels, not in tank, and we do not add any commercial yeast. It's all native ferment. We ferment it in our cave, which is about 55 to 60 degrees, and it naturally just kicks off on its own. We'll put it into an array of different barrels, mostly American neutral, and a touch of French cooperage as well, with a very small percentage of new oak. And they'll sit in barrel there. It'll take about a month to ferment. And then once that wine goes towards dryness, then we start kind of our second phase, I call it. And that is introducing the mouthfeel of the wine. And one of the ways in which we achieve that is by stirring the lees that is naturally in the barrel. So all of those solids have settled down to the bottom of the barrel as it goes to dryness. Well, what we'll do then is purposely kick that up. We call that batonnage. And batonnage is simply stirring those solids up and kicking them back up into the wine, and then they slowly settle back down to the bottom. And then in about a couple weeks, we'll do it again. And we'll keep doing that through malolactic fermentation, which also happens in the barrel and is also natural. We do not add any malolactic bacteria. So pure native primary and malolactic fermentation in barrel. And with that process, that brown color magically turns to a beautiful golden hue. We start to get the mouthfeel that we all know so well with this Monte Bello Chardonnay, and that natural vibrant acidity is intact. We'll age the wine in those barrels for, depending on which lot, but between 11 and 17 months. Then we'll rack it out, meaning rack it clean off of that sediment in preparation for bottling.